Before we begin, please subscribe and like this channel so you never miss a new true story. My son said I was a loser at the dinner table and my daughter clapped. I said nothing, but I was listening. It was a Saturday evening in October and I'd driven 3 hours from Atlanta to Charlotte to celebrate my daughter-in-law's promotion at some marketing firm. She'd been married to my son Derek for 7 years, and in that time, I'd learned to read the room carefully. My ex-wife, Patricia, was there too. We'd been divorced for 18 years, but we made an effort for the kids. We were civil, professional even. I'm Marcus Webb, 63 years old. I spent 40 years building a commercial real estate portfolio across the Southeast. Nothing flashy, nothing criminal, just steady work, smart deals, and patience. I retired early at 58 with enough passive income to live quietly in a 3-bedroom home in Buckhead, volunteer twice a week at a youth mentorship program, and help my grandchildren with their college funds. I'm a man of few words. People often mistake that for weakness. Derek had never understood that about me. He wanted a father who was loud, demonstrative, always talking about his success. Instead, he got a father who listened more than he spoke, who kept his money private, who showed up when it mattered, but didn't need the credit. That night, the 4 of us sat in that restaurant, one of those modern places with exposed brick and small plates. Derek ordered wine he couldn't afford. His wife, Shanice, wore a dress that probably cost more than my monthly electric bill. Patricia looked tired, the way she always did at these things, and I ordered salmon and listened. The conversation drifted. Derek's job at the insurance company had stalled. He'd been passed over for a promotion twice. Shanice was thriving, making 6 figures now, getting the attention and accolades he wanted. You could see it eating at him, the way his jaw tightened when she talked about her new team. Then, apropos of nothing, Derek turned to me and said, "You know what, Dad? You're a perfect example of what not to do with your life. You had all these opportunities and you just retired early, like a loser. No ambition, no drive, just sat back and watched everyone else live." The restaurant seemed to quiet. Patricia's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Shanice laughed, actually clapped her hands together like he'd told the funniest joke. "Oh my God, Derek, yes. Like what even is Marcus doing now? Volunteering." She said it like the word tasted bad. My granddaughter, Alicia, who was 16 and at the table, looked down at her plate. She knew better. She'd seen her grandfather build something from nothing, seen the discipline it took. I cut another piece of salmon. I chewed it slowly. I looked at Derek, really looked at him, and I saw a man drowning in his own smallness, trying to make himself bigger by cutting down someone else. I saw Shanice doing the same thing, and I saw Patricia looking at me with something like pity. I smiled, not a warm smile, a knowing smile. "That's interesting," I said quietly. "Thank you for your perspective, Derek." Nothing more. I finished my dinner. I ordered coffee. I listened to Shanice talk about her team's new client wins, and I nodded at appropriate moments. When the check came, I paid for the whole table. I always did. And I drove back to Atlanta. That was Monday. Tuesday morning, I did what I'd been planning to do for 6 months. You see, Derek didn't know that when my mother passed 5 years ago, she'd left her estate to me, a small rental property in Charlotte worth $180,000 plus some liquid assets. She'd done it because she knew Derek would squander it, and she wanted to ensure her great-grandchildren had something. I'd never mentioned it to anyone, not even Patricia. It was mine to manage quietly. That Tuesday, I contacted a property manager and put the house on the market. Not to sell it, but to rent it out. Within 2 weeks, I had tenants, a young family, Section 8 approved, The rental income would flow directly into a college fund for Alicia and her brother, Jeremy. But that was just the beginning. I also made some calls. Derek had borrowed $15,000 from my ex-wife 3 years ago, a loan he'd never paid back. Patricia had been too kind to press him, too embarrassed to ask me for help. I called her and told her to send me the promissory note she'd made him sign. She did. I had it notarized and filed with a collections agency in North Carolina. It cost Derek $400 in processing fees and damaged his credit score. Not illegal. Not even particularly harsh. Just consequences. More importantly, I called Alicia and Jeremy. I told them that I'd been setting aside money for them quietly over the years. Money that would now come to them through structured trusts when they turned 18. I told them it was because I believed in them. And I wanted them to know that their grandfather's love wasn't contingent on anyone's applause. I told them I'd always be proud of them, even when nobody else was. Derek found out about the collections agency within a week. He called me furious, demanding to know why I'd betrayed him, why I was betraying the family by dragging an old debt into the light. He screamed. He accused me of being vindictive, spiteful, of ruining his credit before an important refinance on their house. I listened quietly. "Derek," I said, "you called me a loser. You allowed your wife to humiliate me in public. I said nothing because I respect myself too much to argue with someone who doesn't see me. But I'm also not going to pretend that those actions don't matter. Your mother deserves to be repaid. And I'm going to make sure that happens. This is because of what I said at dinner." His voice cracked. He was crying now, but not from remorse, from panic, from realizing that his actions had actual consequences. "No, Derek, this is because of who you are, and I needed to stop protecting you from that." I hung up. 2 weeks later, Shanice called me. She'd apparently done some digging and discovered the property I'd inherited, the rental income structure, and the college trusts. She wanted to know if Derek could access that money, if they could borrow against it for the refinance. She was sweet about it, almost seductive in her tone, the same voice she used when she was manipulating her employees into working weekends. I told her no. I told her that money was for Alicia and Jeremy, and it would never be available to her or Derek. I told her that I'd sat quietly for years while she condescended to me, while she encouraged my son to disrespect his father, and I'd decided that my silence was a form of enabling, so I was done. She hung up on me. A week later, Derek's refinance fell through. His credit score had dropped 30 points. Shanice became convinced that Derek had somehow hidden assets from her, and she started looking through their financial records. She discovered that Derek had, in fact, hidden assets, $12,000 in a separate account he'd been building for a paramour he'd met at work. It wasn't an affair yet, but it was close. She found text messages, pictures. That part wasn't my doing, but it was the inevitable consequence of Derek being the kind of man who would betray his father and then blame me for his own failures. Patricia called me a month later. She said Derek had moved into a hotel. Shanice was divorcing him. Alicia and Jeremy had asked why their father had lied to their mother, why he had money hidden away. "What did you tell them?" I asked. "The truth," Patricia said. "That sometimes people are small, and sometimes they get caught being small, and that Grandpa Marcus loved them enough to give them something that their parents couldn't." I felt something release in my chest. The last time I saw Derek was at a car dealership in Buckhead of all places. He was looking at a used BMW, trying to fix his life by buying things again, I suppose. I was there for my usual Saturday oil change. He saw me and tried to leave, but I walked over. "How are the kids?" I asked. He couldn't meet my eyes. "They're okay. Alicia got a scholarship, full ride to Spelman. I didn't know how to tell her that. You tell her you're proud of her, I said. You show up. You be the father they deserve, not the man you've been. I was wrong, he said, at that dinner. I was wrong. And I'm sorry. I nodded. I know, but sorry doesn't undo it. What you do next does. I got my oil changed. I drove home. I volunteered at the youth center that evening, working with kids from neighborhoods like the one I'd grown up in. Kids who needed to see what dignity looked like, what patience looked like, what quiet strength could build. Derek didn't call me again, but Alicia did. She sent me her acceptance letter. She told me she was going to study business, and she wanted to learn from me someday. I told her I'd be waiting. And that was the end of it. Not a Hollywood ending. Not a revenge that required anyone to suffer beyond what their own choices had already cost them. Just a man who stopped letting his own silence protect people who didn't deserve protecting. Just consequences that were already written in the small, cruel choices they made. My son said I was a loser. I said nothing. But I was listening. And I was building. True story.